Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fueled by Progress, hosted by me, Mark Joseph Szymanski. Today, we have a very special guest, someone that I have actually never met in person, but we are speaking for the first time today. And I've watched a lot of his live streams, a lot of his content on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. He's all over. If you're not following him already, you should be. Max Mirho, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
So very happy again for you to come on and really appreciate it. And just to give like the audience and even me sort of like a little bit of a backstory on where you're at, and we'll touch on everything that you're doing now because that's all very exciting. But how did you get to this place? So like meaning what was your I know that I don't think you're a Pittsburgh native if I recall correctly. So how did you get to here? I know you went to CMU. So if you want to just fill in a little bit of those details as far as the context.
Yep, totally. So, um, I graduated about almost a year and a half ago, from Carnegie Mellon University here in Pittsburgh. Prior to that, I lived in Lake Oswego, Oregon, a tiny little kind of suburb on the outside of Portland. And I lived there for about a year. And before that, I was in a tiny little town, middle of nowhere on the Oregon coast. So I grew up mostly in Oregon, and then went to CMU because it was the best place that I got in by far. Really happy about that, and I'm really happy that I came here. But I always kind of had an interest in business to some degree, and that's mainly because my dad is a business guy. He runs his own law firm. He runs a startup over in Seattle. I've been to Seattle a lot too.
Mhm.
I've worked partially, done internships for his startup up there. Love what he's doing. That kind of got me the initial interest, and he was always pumped up about business and entrepreneurship and startups and everything like that. And so he, of course, that kind of bled into me, right?
Hmm.
So I started doing investigation into it, started looking into it. Sounded really exciting. Entrepreneurship just at the base level sounds really fun and exciting, and it is.
Hmm.
Um, when I got to CMU, I signed up for a program in business, and or like I got into the business school, and I signed
Hmm.
up for a focus in entrepreneurship. So I wanted to learn entrepreneurship. For the first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, I was having a bunch of fun, learning my social boundaries, everything like that, just making a bunch
Hmm.
of friends. Um, but I wasn't learning anything in entrepreneurship for the first two
Hmm.
years. I was just taking basic business courses, and that was really annoying to me because I really wanted to get into the specific content that I signed up for.
Right.
And nothing against CMU. It was an amazing place. We can talk more about that later. I
Hmm.
think college is a great thing.
Yeah.
But I wasn't learning what I wanted to. So at the end of my sophomore year, I reached out to a few local tech founders in the Pittsburgh community. I said, hey, how does this shit work? Like, please, like, tell me. I don't know what's going on. I've never known what's going on. I've just heard that this is a thing, and I don't know how to get into it. I don't know how it functions. Is it a
Hmm.
process? Is there even something that I can learn to do to get started, or is it just happened by luck?
Hmm.
Sat down with two of them. They were super nice. Took a ton of notes in a tiny little red book, and I just got like kind of addicted to talking to people in this space and learning from them and networking and building my network and asking for help,
Hmm.
because it was so productive. I learned so much new stuff every single time.
Hmm.
So for the next year, that's all I did. I talked to like 100 different founders and CEOs of tech startups from Portland, California, everywhere that anybody that I could get my hands on. Learned a bunch. That was great. After finally about a year, middle of my junior year, I think, I decided like, or end middle of my junior year, I was like, hey, maybe I could do something myself. And so I built a little newsletter. I experimented with a local meetup group. I started building stuff. And
Hmm.
as I started building stuff, that eventually led into, hey, I'm learning way the fuck more doing this kind of thing and experimenting, even with really, really small scale basic stuff, than I am from talking to people or reading anything online or reading books or going to classes. Because by then, I was actually taking entrepreneurship classes. But I was
Hmm.
learning way more from my own personal experiments. So I started documenting some of the stuff that I was learning on videos, online, on LinkedIn, because I had heard just through my networking that LinkedIn was a really great place to be making content right now. So I started making content there that eventually evolved into a nice little video series called Entrepreneur. And then I started live streaming, and that really took off, and people really liked that. And I really like that content format the most. And so I've been consistently live streaming for a little bit over a year. And that is the Entrepreneur Show or Entrepreneur Live
Yeah.
Show or whatever you want to call it. So, and that's my
Gotcha.
main thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's a very interesting story. The let's maybe we stay on like college just for now because like that's obviously that is where a lot of your stuff kind of sparked from. It seems like. Well, I mean, obviously you have the the family dynamic. You said your dad was in business, and then you have, you get to CMU, and so correct me. Did you were in the business school? Like, was there like an entrepreneurship like major type thing? Were you studying that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's the Tepper School of Business. That's the
Mm-hmm.
name of the business school, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a bunch of like programs within them. So, and they call them like focuses. So my degree says business administration,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it was with a focus in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship. And so focus just essentially means you take a few supplemental courses. You get to pick your electives essentially.
Gotcha.
You get to pick a certain subset of electives, and so I picked as many electives as I possibly could in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship. I ended up
Gotcha.
taking, I think, like the bare minimum was like three courses, the three primary courses in entrepreneurship, I think, and then I took
Mm-hmm.
like two or three more in like DFAB and how to build stuff and a little bit of software and stuff like that, just to learn the basics of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was just kind of a focus. It wasn't its own specific entrepreneurship major.
Gotcha. Okay. So when as you're going through that, obviously, so the topic, the interesting topic there is college. So I went to the University of Pittsburgh, like right down the street, and I actually have lived in Pittsburgh all my life, so I commuted there. So it's a different story as far as that as far as yours goes, but. I actually went for like computer engineering, and then I switched over to like computer science and information science. So it's kind of like a similar type thing. Ended up going more towards the business route. The question that I have for you, and maybe a topic here while we're on the college topic, like I said, is what do you think the biggest assets of college are? Because like I have my own certain opinions on them, and I think it really depends on how you utilize college. I think you utilize college in a very good way. I think it's huge for networking. I think it's huge for experimenting and all that sort of stuff. But I think a lot of people, can sometimes. I don't know if I can recommend it to everyone, if that makes sense.
Totally agree. Yeah. So my perspective on it, oh, excuse me. And again, this comes from me as an individual who came from a upper middle class white family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had plenty of opportunities. I would have had a sandbox anyway. I don't know exactly what things would have turned out like, but they
Right.
probably would have turned out fine if I didn't go
Mm-hmm.
to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
My family's doing fine. My dad runs a
Mm-hmm.
startup.
Yep.
My parents are smart. I
Mm-hmm.
could have learned stuff on my own to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, I went to CMU, great technical school. The reason that I wanted to go there is not because they have the best business program, but it was a great business program.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great one that I got into, but not because like they're number one in education or whatever.
Right.
Um, I wanted to go. My dad wanted me to go. My parents wanted me to go because everybody there is brilliant technically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody there is brilliant artistically. Everybody
Right.
there is brilliant financially, right? There's a lot
Right.
of like specific programs there that are like incredible in terms
Mm-hmm.
of things. And I wasn't in those programs, but I would know people in those programs. So the network, I agree completely. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of touched on it,
Yep.
is the thing that I think is the most important about
Mm-hmm.
college. Um, Also, it's it's difficult to replace because it's kind of a coming of age thing at this point.
Yeah.
Like you have great experiences socially in college and you have terrible experiences
Mm-hmm.
socially in college. And
Yeah.
everybody goes to parties and some people love it and some people hate it. And
Mm-hmm.
you learn your social boundaries and how to just like interact fluently with people. Like in high school, you kind of get the hang of it. You start to
Right.
understand how to socialize, but you
Yeah.
learn how to become fluent in the language of communication in terms of people your age interested in the same shit that you are.
Right.
So that's kind of hard to replace, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, because otherwise you're a little bit weird. And I was a little
Mm-hmm.
bit weird going into college, and I was a little bit
Mm-hmm.
weird going to high school. I was really
Mm-hmm.
weird going into high school because I was homeschooled all
Mm-hmm.
through middle school. I never went to middle school.
Gotcha.
Um, so I don't know. I think that's the weird part. That's a benefit that isn't necessarily that's hard to quantify though, right?
Right.
Um, but generally, I think the network is number one, and like close second is the kind of sandbox
Mm-hmm.
kind of environment that it puts you in.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they let you explore more in terms of
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, in terms of classes, in terms of ideas.
Right.
There's like drop deadlines, and there's not as much. I understand why they can't have a ton of flexibility, but like I wish there was slightly more flexibility because the
Mm-hmm.
point of college is to figure out what the fuck you want to
Yeah.
do theoretically for the rest of your life, even though nobody does the same
Right.
thing for the rest of their life.
Right.
Um, or at least people in our space. So I think the network and the ability to just fuck around, meet people from all walks of life, talk to people that have had like business experiences, professional
Right.
experiences from all walks of life. So you get to kind of understand what the fuck is going on a general basis in the world.
Right.
So yeah, those are the two main things, but it's not the education. It's not the curriculum that you learn unless you're in something super technical, I would guess.
Yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. I think that, the compounding thing too is, and obviously, it depends on each person's situation, but like, the debt that you could accrue from going to college. And
Yeah.
I'm by no means a person that says don't go to college type of thing, but like, I just like, I really enjoy like when people have, they kind of see the landscape and they kind of weigh all of the options before they just dive into something. And I think college is something that's really like that. I think about it all the time with myself personally. Would I be in a different position if I hadn't gone to Pitt, for those 4 years, and I would have done something else? Because ultimately, I did learn things. I did network a decent amount, but again, like I said, it was a different experience. I didn't really go there and like, live there and stuff like that. So, you save a little bit of money. You don't get as much networking. I mean, you could have done more, I suppose, but it's just, it's all, there's like, 3 or 4 things in there that are variables that if you play them right, then you could have a very good experience. And if you play them horribly wrong, you could be totally fucked.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
for
Yeah.
sure.
So that's an interesting one though. But the part that is that I have a question about for you is sort of like now where you're kind of going and like that step out of life on the West Coast, and now you came all the way over here to Pittsburgh. I'm interested in that. I mean, I guess you obviously said you got into CMU, highly prestigious. You obviously want to take that offer, and now you're still in Pittsburgh though. So like, is that what was the reasoning for that? I'm sure you made some friends and stuff like that. So like, what made that decision that you're going to stay here, and do you see yourself staying here for like the foreseeable future? What's kind of the in the cards there?
Yeah, totally. So, you're right. I went to CMU, best place I got in. Very happy with it. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I stayed here afterwards because I do really like the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the place that I've been like independent for the only part of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was in high school, like I was still very much dependent on my parents. I didn't really know what was going on. Like everybody, I was a little bit less social than most people, so I wasn't like constantly going out and doing my own things. And just like finally, I get independence. Whatever. It was just I was
Mm-hmm.
dropping to college, and I was like, oh, hey, I can do my own stuff now,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of was just an awakening for me in terms of like what I want to do, right? So I had that awakening here, whatever you want to call it, and I was independent for the entire time that I've been here. So I really, it's like this is kind of like the start of my like adult life, right?
Right.
And so of course I really like it, right? Because this is
Mm-hmm.
the place that I've had the most experiences.
Right.
So I really like it here. It's a great place. I also run a company here called
Mm-hmm.
Moss Generation with my partner Andy Chan. He's
Mm-hmm.
super cool. He runs a startup in town. We both basically he just threw together a little group of startup founders locally, and it started growing. And he was like, hey, I know you already run, I was running events in other things in similar spaces. He was like, hey, I know you would love this, do you want to join on? And I was like, sure, absolutely. And so now we're co-founders of the company, and we've been building it. It was profitable for a little while, then COVID hit. We can't
Mm-hmm.
host events anymore,
Right.
but it's still functioning and up and running. um, that's also another big thing, because and the
Mm-hmm.
reason we were able to build that group was because we both networked like an insane amount in the local community. And so all my like professional friends came from that group. All my professional connections and the people that I trust the most, and the people that I go to as mentors and everything like that, are in that group. And they're all in
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh, and they're all here, and I love them all. So
Mm-hmm.
also my friends, there were a lot of people stayed in Pittsburgh. My entire social group is here, right?
Gotcha.
Professionally and personally. So that's a big reason. Second big reason right now, I probably wouldn't leave immediately. I'm probably going to leave after about, I think, a year from now ish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a prediction. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I have a girlfriend here. Things are going absolutely amazing with her.
Mm-hmm.
Want to keep that going. She's moving up to grad school in about a year. I'm mostly virtual with all the stuff that I do already in terms of work. So I'm probably just going to follow and try to build networks and grow the content wherever I go. So that's the plan right now, but who knows? Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So that all makes a lot of sense. I think that you're in this position now where you've graduated from CMU. You like you said, that's a really good way to articulate it. You've basically started your adult life here.
Yeah.
So depending on what happens in the future, obviously especially people that are like sort of like us, we're always doing different things. We're always having different ideas. Maybe one day for tax purposes you move to Texas or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's but that makes a lot of sense. So your family's still out west though.
Family's still out west. Yeah, my
Nice.
mom lives in, I think she's back in Oregon right now. My
Hmm.
dad lives closer to Seattle,
Gotcha.
and my sister moved out to Montana. So
Wow. Nice. All over the place. Well, that's cool. You get to experience a lot of different areas of the country if you ever
mhm.
visit. So that's dope. Um, so I think the next logical step, as far as conversation goes, and a lot of things that I'm interested in, hopefully our viewers are interested in as well, is we're talking a little bit about, you mentioned Moss Generation, you mentioned entrepreneur, sorry, and like I'm interested in the origin, and I know that probably some of it came from CMU and just like being excited about those things and trying to get everything going there, and so like was it just based off of your network? Like what was the let's maybe start with Moss Generation. What was like the foundation for that?
Yeah. So the way that started, I was in my networking kind of obsessed phase, and I was running
Hmm.
around talking to a bunch of any tech founder that I could find, whether they were related to CMU or Pitt or not. Um, there's probably a lot more related to Pitt in town that I've seen. Ironically, because CMU likes to pump itself up, but
Right.
I think Pitt just does a whole lot better at it. Um, but the I was running around talking to all these people trying to build my network just because building a network seemed like a really valuable thing for me. And I was also learning a ton. I was learning a ton about different industries, different places, and that set the foundation for a lot of the stuff that I know how to do now. And that was great. In the process of doing that, I met Andy Chan. He runs a startup in town. I knew him. I actually talked to somebody over in California that was a CMU grad. She recommended that I talk to him back in Pittsburgh. So it was a random little connection from Mountain View, California, all the way back to
Wow.
Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
Um, and I sat down with him. Great guy. We hit it off. Cool. I saw him at a couple of other events. He's a goof. We got along really
Hmm.
great.
Yeah.
And like sort of became like friends. Every time I would see him, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up?" And he would be like,
Hmm.
"Hey, how's it going?" And eventually, I had the idea of like I've seen a lot of events. I went to tons of events because I wanted to network and I wanted to meet people. That was
Hmm.
my main way of doing that. Went to tons and tons of events around town. I was hosting my own little events, mostly related to students and getting them connected to startup founders, like I was trying to do. And I started talking to a few more prominent people in town that were considered like mentors in terms of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Um, and I asked them like, "Hey, I'm thinking of building just a group of just founders and entrepreneurs and people really focused on building tech companies." And
Hmm.
people thought that was a stupid idea. And they were like, "No, we already have stuff like that. There's already stuff that exists. You're wasting your effort there." I was like, "Oh, damn. Okay, shoot." And then
Hmm.
Andy, like 2 months later, just like got like five, six, seven founders and entrepreneurs together for like a dinner. And he was like, "Hey, we should all hang out. There's no events like this in town. We should all just hang out."
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "Oh, it's a great fucking idea." And
Hmm.
so they all gathered. They all got dinner together. Everybody loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
He hosted a second one. A sponsor came in. They were like, "We love this. We want to sponsor the event." And then like I think it was somewhere around like 20, 25, 30 people showed up because he just invited a larger group and everybody loved it. And they were like, "Oh, this is one of the best events in Pittsburgh." And so Andy just went and did it.
Yeah.
Um, and then he was like, "Hey, I know you've wanted to do something like this. I know you've hosted stuff in town because I was hosting small events." He's like, "Do you want to come on with me as a co-founder? Because I'm already running a startup. I can't run this full
Hmm.
time.
Right.
I know you would love this. I feel like you'd be perfect for this." I was like, "Absolutely!" And so I jumped right into that, and it's still salty to me to this day because like
Yeah.
people were like, "No, it's a dumb idea. You shouldn't do that." And then
Yeah.
he just goes and does it, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's an amazing idea. It's incredible. Why would you? Why
Yeah.
did somebody not do this before?"
Yeah.
Um, and so now we built that. It's been wonderful. We've gotten tons of sponsors. We've been paid for it. It's been super super cool. But basically, it was just built off of my network. He wanted my
Yeah.
network involved in it. He wanted me as the event host and in on it, and someone who attends a
Yeah.
ton of things.
Yeah.
And he had already started the foundation, and people really
Yeah.
liked it, and we had everything we needed from there. And
Yeah.
I've helped grow it to I think around 200 members. So
Nice. So more or less, it's a networking group that you guys have regular events, obviously pre-COVID, and you just kind of talk and just like share different ideas and things like that. And
yeah, so it's
nice.
all networking. We don't
Yeah.
do any like speakers or anything. We tried that kind of, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really work. We use the sponsors to get free drinks, free food. It's free for everybody to attend, but the only
Hmm.
people that are invited are founders of growing tech startups, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
only employees of growing tech startups. So the people that are there know exactly are all dealing with the same fucking problems in terms of
Right.
scaling, in terms of selling their thing, in terms of actually getting their
Right.
product or service in the hands of customers.
Hmm.
And they should be relatively scalable in terms of like you're a product company, you're not a service
Hmm.
company, so that investors might be interested because we want to pair investors with companies at some point in the future. We've done a little bit of that. I think we got some investor conversations going, but we haven't like built it more substantially. But yeah, it's very, very specific. You're only
Yeah.
invited if you're in this specific email list, we handpick you, we hand interview
Right.
you,
Right.
we whitelist the hell out of it just to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
the quality of the conversation is really high. And that's
Right.
worked really well because no other event in town does that. So
Right. Let's dig into that a little bit because I have a couple interesting questions about that. So like, what do you define as like a tech startup? Is it literally just somebody that's like building like a SaaS product or building like something of that nature? Where's like the line in the sand as to what is that?
yeah, so the there's so for Moss Generation, we
Mm-hmm.
don't really, we're a little bit looser on it. We
Mm-hmm.
have let in some like service companies that have unique offerings.
Right.
The way that we define it for Moss Generation, a tech startup,
Mm-hmm.
is just you are like mostly a product company, right? So
Okay.
whether that's hardware, whether that's software, whatever it is, you're a
Mm-hmm.
product company, meaning you build a product and then you just make a ton of that product. You don't have to do any extra work. You just make a ton of that product and sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And therein lies the scalability because you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to like spend more time for every new customer,
Right.
or at least theoretically you don't,
Mm-hmm.
given the amount of pay. So that's one big thing. B2B, B2C, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who you're selling to, just as long as you have a product and it scales, it like your theoretical path scales like a hockey stick, right?
Yep.
So you're able to scale up really quickly. You don't have to hire on more people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basics of it. The
Mm-hmm.
second part usually is you kind of your market size is large enough that you could scale to a pretty substantial size, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then investors might be interested because if you don't scale beyond like $1 billion, usually venture capitalists and angel investors don't really care.
Right.
We don't really care about that for Moss Generation. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like super important. We just mostly want you to have that hockey stick growth. Whatever your peak is, we don't really care. So it's just
Right.
you're a product company and you have reached the points where you are starting to sell to customers is the only like kind of criteria that we have for Moss Generation. Um, in terms of like general
Mm-hmm.
stuff, that hockey stick growth usually important for startups in general. That's like a qualifying little thing. People
Mm-hmm.
will call small agencies startups as well, though, so it gets a little bit weird. And those aren't scalable in the same degree. Those are more kind of linear,
Mm-hmm.
just because you have to hire on more people if you're going to take on more customers. There are also like lifestyle businesses, which is mostly what I spend a lot of my time doing with entrepreneur lifestyle or mini startups. I've heard a bunch of different terms for them. They're
Mm-hmm.
just like tech startups with smaller markets. So you build a
Mm-hmm.
product, you have that scalability kind of thing. It's usually a tech product online. It's usually something virtual, like a little SaaS product, like a little ebook, like a little whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the maximum peak that you can hit is something like 10 million or 20 million or 100 million or just 1 million, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle company. It's something that can't scale to something insane. Investors probably are never going to be interested, but provides plenty of revenue. It functions the same way as any other startup, but for some reason it has a different name just because the peak is different and investors probably aren't interested. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I define. Those are
Right.
the two definitions that I've kind of seen for like tech startup.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all hazy. Everybody uses startup for everything. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's also like you mentioned in there, so there's startup and there's agency. And like I don't want to just hit you with terms here, but like how do you define those two things? I know you said that you were I think you might have updated it since the last time I heard about it, but I know you said you were thinking about like starting kind of like an agency type thing. So like what's the idea there as far as that goes?
yeah. So um, difference between startup and agency. Startup usually is product. Agency, or at least in my personal
Mm-hmm.
definition, agency is a service. So if
Gotcha.
I do video editing, that is a service, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have a product where people can edit their own videos, then I just sell them that piece of software and I don't
Right.
have to do anything, then
Gotcha.
that's a product sell, right? And that I can scale that as much as I want to just repackage the same software. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for an agency, I have to, if I'm doing the editing for them, then I have to hire on somebody new if I'm going to take on like 3 or 4 more customers because I can't handle more work. It's trading my time for money, right? However
Right.
tech enabled that is.
Yep.
That's what I define as an agency. Nothing wrong with that. Those are
Mm-hmm.
often the easiest to scale because
Mm-hmm.
the like it's you like hiring on more people is a little more difficult. Those are easiest to start because you don't
Yeah.
have to build a product or do anything complicated. Um, so those are the differences. I am trying to start my own agency.
Mm-hmm.
I just got my first hopeful client. We'll see. It's very, very early stage. We're going to see
Yeah.
how it goes. Um, I still have their work sitting in my email inbox, so I got to get to that today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically, it's some degree of video editing. Video editing is a really highly competitive thing in terms of freelancers and digital agencies and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So we're trying to just help edit live streams because I do my own live streams. Those go
Right.
really well. My editor knows how to edit live streams into nice little shareable clips.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the uh, process of doing that and actually finding the most entertaining clips is
Mm-hmm.
really time consuming. And so
Yeah.
we actually take that as well. And we try to take that, like we find the most entertaining clips for you. We caption it, we make it into little clips, we make it super shareable, we make it look really nice. Um, all of that is kind of like a full service thing for live streamers. That's our
Mm-hmm.
theory.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea that like, oh, that's a productive kind of offering, and we haven't really seen too much like that in the market. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to see if it works, but it's still
Yeah.
very, very early stage. Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, lots to unpack there, and I think that I probably know a little bit more than some of our viewers that might not be following you. So you've entrepreneured, and we've talked independently from the separately from the stream that you also do some client work. So are you bundling that in now with like this new agency? Would you say to just kind of lay the structure here as far as like what you're kind of doing, and then we can expand on that.
Yeah, so the client work that I do independently, I
Mm-hmm.
do freelancing in general in terms of marketing and PR and a few other little things. I'm
Gotcha.
not like an expert in anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like deep in paid advertising or anything like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just kind of I know the basics of a lot of different little things, mostly
Right.
from experimenting with entrepreneur.
Right.
And so I think it's two or three clients that pay me a good chunk each month, and it's just enough for me to like sit comfortably and survive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm using to sustain myself while I'm trying to grow Entrepreneur and grow Moss Generation to a substantial level. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of like that's probably the main hustle, and then Entrepreneur and Moss Generation and everything else are the side hustle. But I'd hopefully eventually like to make Entrepreneur the main hustle. So, but yeah, it's just a way to
Gotcha.
sustain myself in the meantime.
Gotcha. And you graduated last year, did you say?
Hmm.
And since then, have you just did you literally like walk out of CMU and just walk right into entrepreneurship?
I mean, if you count freelancing as entrepreneurship, I guess I had a few
Yeah.
little clients and we were in conversations, and I started doing a little bit of work for them right before I graduated, and that led to where I am now with
Mm-hmm.
like a few consistent clients that I'm working for part time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already building Entrepreneur, and I was doing a ton of the content for my entire senior year, so I already knew that was kind of functioning. And I think at the middle of my senior year, Andy invited me to jump onto Moss Generation. Maybe it was the beginning of my senior year. But he
Okay.
invited me to jump onto Moss Generation. So by that time, I had most of what I'm doing now kind of in the works or
Gotcha.
starting, right? So by the
Mm-hmm.
time I graduated, I was like, I'm just going to keep doing this shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it ended up working out. So
Yeah.
I was trying really hard my senior year, and I didn't have a lot
Yeah.
of classes, so I had the opportunity to.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think that definitely had like got a good head start there. Before you like
Yeah,
jumped
for
into
sure.
something because like
Very happy about it.
yeah, like with my situation, like I jumped into a job which was fine. Like had an internship, was in a job for like 2.5 years, and then kind of like did the same thing as you did. Started maybe like a year and a half into that with some of these things, and it's just, I mean that's advice that I would give anybody. Try to start as soon as possible because you don't know how much time you have necessarily.
Yep.
Um,
And
but
don't drop out or quit your job or anything like that. Do it
yeah,
while you're doing the other stuff because
right,
yeah, it's silly otherwise.
yeah. So like moving forward here, and we can kind of like touch on like entrepreneur and actually, you know what? I'm going to ask a selfish question here. Um, so you right now with entrepreneur, you go live twice a week, and you
Mhm.
have like a lot of content. And give me maybe let's start here with entrepreneur. So you have the live streams, and you have like the website, and you have like the blog and everything like that. Just a bunch of like content. Do you do? Where's your what's your idea for entrepreneur as far as I don't want to say like monetization, but I want to say like what's the business model of entrepreneur? Is it just like content, or kind of explain that a little bit maybe?
Yeah, so I'm still very much in the process of figuring that out. I think
Yeah,
you've kind of seen a little bit of that just
yeah,
following the content. I was
yeah,
trying to do a premium newsletter for a little while, and that was
right,
working okay, but it was hard to scale. I'm doing trying to do sponsorships in terms of the live streams, getting people to sponsor the content directly.
yeah,
That's kind of cool. I'm trying to run a little online class, and that's kind of flopping. So I'm going to try to pivot that to
mm-hmm,
more of a community, see how that kind of functions. There's a ton of stuff that I'm trying in terms of
mm-hmm,
monetizing this. The sponsorship seems to have worked the best so far.
mm-hmm,
Um, I don't fully know exactly where that's going
yeah,
to go. So I think I'm going to try to focus on sponsorship. Speaking gigs have also actually paid me probably the most so far in terms of one-time deals. And so I'm going to try to get consistent speaking gigs, speaking to probably students in university settings. Hard to get paid for that. but I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to speak at more and more high schools and universities virtually
Mm-hmm.
right now, while everybody is looking for speakers and
Mm-hmm.
educators. That is what I predict is going to
Mm-hmm.
be the biggest kind of revenue piece for a little while, and eventually I
Yeah.
can slow that down and focus mainly on just the content.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's looking like speaking gigs and probably some sponsorship is going to be the 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 big thing at the end. But for now, I'm trying a whole bunch of different stuff to see what sticks, and
Right.
so far it's tough. But yeah, I wish I had an answer to that question. I'm trying to find it myself.
Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat, so I hear you. But your branding is interesting to me because like entrepreneur, I think is genius. Like it makes a lot of sense, and it's very pertinent to everything that you're trying to do. And I think it's even more interesting when I kind of like relate it to the other people that I've seen in the sphere, probably people that we follow together, and then also what I'm kind of doing myself. It's like you are becoming the entrepreneur, right? Like that is your personal brand. Like you're not like Max Mirho percent. I mean, you are, but you know what I'm saying. Like that is your I don't want to call it shtick because that sounds ridiculous, but like that's your thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and when you tie in things, because when I think about this and when I started this whole thing, I wanted people to kind of like know that like, okay, hey, I do X, Y, and Z, or like I can provide you X, Y, and Z. I make content on this, that, and the other thing. And I think it's really interesting how you're tying your personal like name and identity into entrepreneur, and you're doing all of that now. Like you said, you're trying to do speaking gigs, you're doing obviously all the content, so people are starting to associate the two, and I think it's gonna work very well. And I'm excited to see like sort of how the monetization process goes with all that, because like you said, it's kind of difficult. Like the hardest thing that I'm finding is like you got to find your audience, and then once you find your audience, then more views and things like that can come of it, and you just get other opportunities. But that just takes so much time, so you got to persevere through that.
Yeah, process. I'm still very much in the process of trying to find my audience and who likes my stuff. And like I have like a general idea, and
Yeah,
it seems like I'm kind of hitting it. Like just recently, I'm kind of starting to find it, but
yeah,
I feel like it's a lot more on Twitter than I thought it was. I need to
hmm
focus on Twitter.
yeah,
I think YouTube is going to be a big important part. It's it's really weird. People on Instagram seem to like it a lot.
hmm
It's I don't fully know, but I know it's usually kids ages 17, 16, 17 to around 25,
hmm
and people interested in tech and business, and usually have studied that in school. But that's a general kind of who the heck knows. I very much haven't defined it yet, and it's so difficult to get that initial audience. And
right,
but I've been studying a bunch of YouTubers that where they hit their hockey stick and where
yeah,
they like found that audience, and then suddenly went from like 50,000 subscribers to like 2 million subscribers. Like
yeah,
it's a super interesting curve, and I
yeah,
know a
yeah,
bunch of people that I really respect in terms of content online. It's
hmm
I just want to hit that curve, so we'll see.
right. Where do you like how do you get to the point where part of the thing that I'm thinking about is like I'm trying to do a lot of different things, and like I think that you're in a similar boat, right? You're doing freelance work, you're doing entrepreneur, boss generation, like all of this stuff. Like my first question would be like what is your favorite thing? Like what makes you the happiest, what makes you the most fulfilled in a sense? Because the follow-up question is how have you I know you've started to do this. How do you start to make like a difference between and really figure out how to like delegate some of the stuff that you don't want to do off, because I know that you have a video editor, so like that's extremely time consuming. Like how did you come to that conclusion and think that that was like the right timing to do that and start to expand a little bit?
Yeah. So super great question. Yeah, and super pertinent to what we're doing right now and what anybody starting stuff is doing. Outsourcing is super important. I initially I made just videos, right? Initially I just made
Mm-hmm.
videos. I did that for about a year, and then I got into live streaming, and I was still making the videos, and then I decided that the videos were too time consuming or too costly or whatever. I just didn't really like the content anymore, even though it was actually probably performing a little bit better. Um, and then, well, it was on the downturn. And then I went to live streaming, and I really enjoyed live streaming, and that's just more consistent, right? It's easier to be more consistent there because you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
edit it as much,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
at least worry about like coming up with ideas, right?
Right.
It's more fluid, right? It's more like a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's more me as an individual instead of just ideas in content. So, and that's why I really liked it. But Regardless, that's all still video content. I still do highlights every week for each of the live streams, and I publish those and I try to push those out. Uh, all of that video editing, all of the video editing prior, I was getting really frustrated with how much time per week that I was spending in front of the computer, just like figuring. And I enjoyed it. Like
Hmm.
video editing was kind of fun, but it was
Right.
just really, really time consuming. And I really, really
Yeah.
wanted to be trying other things. And I wanted to be in meetings. I wanted to be contacting other people. I
Yeah.
wanted to be trying to make more content. Right.
Hmm.
Um, it was weird, and I
Yeah.
didn't really enjoy it. And at one of the first speaking gigs that I ever had, it was at a little e-center, entrepreneurship center for high school kids over like an hour and a half north of here, I think, in Youngstown.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe wasn't even an hour and a half, it was like 30 minutes north. But I drove up in a zip car, rented a zip car. I don't have a
Hmm.
car. Drove up, just spoke in front of a bunch of kids. This is at the time when I was only like just throwing together a few different things. I was just barely starting Entrepreneur. I was just barely starting a little thing that I had locally called Yes PGH, which was an
Hmm.
internship finding service.
Yeah.
I was futzing around with a lot, but I was just at the point where I realized how much opportunity there is and how easy it is to start stuff. And just I was getting really, really pumped about entrepreneurship. And because I had a little bit of experience, it was really valuable to these high school kids. They were all interested in entrepreneurship. That's why they were in the program. I spoke there. The kids loved it. They had a ton of fun. And a couple of the kids came up to me afterwards and they were like, "That was great. It's really cool. It's awesome to meet you. Would love to like stay in contact." And one of them, his name was Joe
Hmm.
Mrozek, and really, really cool kid. He was really into video editing. He was doing his own kind of video editing stuff. He had his own YouTube channel. He's been building a ton of content. He also liked that I was doing stuff.
Hmm.
We stayed in touch. We stayed in contact. We were kind of friends. We hung out on Instagram. Added his number. We texted occasionally. And anytime he had any questions, he would always shoot me a message and be like, "Yo, what's going on here?"
Hmm.
And he really liked my videos. He liked everything that I was doing. It very much was an organic thing. He was like, "Hey, do you need any help video editing?" And I was like, "Actually, that sounds lit." And it took me like a month or two to warm up to that. I was like, "No, no,
Hmm.
no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm doing this all myself. I don't really trust anybody to do it the same
Yeah.
degree. It's really, really difficult to outsource a creative process bit."
Hmm.
But I knew he had experience with this. I gave him a couple projects. He rocked them. He did way better than I ever could.
Hmm.
And from there, I was just like, "Hey, I'll pay you to do this."
Yeah.
Um, he was like, "Great." So from then on, I paid him a little bit every week, anytime I had a project, to just
Hmm.
outsource that. And it was amazing. It was such a revelation because I had suddenly so much more time, which I then proceeded to blow on more useless stuff. But
Hmm.
it was a big piece, and it helped me understand that I can outsource stuff. And recently, kind of a funny little story, I'm doing freelance stuff for a couple different clients. One of my clients assigned me to, I can't talk about who because I don't want them to hear
Yeah.
this and get all peeved.
Right. Right.
But one of them assigned me to a really, really boring research project. Like, oh my
Hmm.
God.
Yeah.
And it was huge, big, very big research project. I
Yeah.
am garbage at research, mainly because it's not fun for me. It's just really, really
Yeah.
boring. And so when
Right.
something's boring, I'm terrible at it.
Right.
So they assigned me to this really, really big research project, and I knew it was going to take a ton of time. So I immediately went to Upwork, and I was like, "Hey, who's good
Hmm.
at research?" Because I've assigned research projects before. I was
Yeah.
experimenting with Upwork for fun before, and I just outsourced the entire thing for a few $100.
Nice.
Um, and I ended up getting paid for it just fine. But and that was kind of a Tim Ferriss-y kind of weird
Hmm.
4-hour work week moment. But
Yeah.
learning to outsource, experimenting with Upwork for basic little like database like projects or little like research projects. I've had people compile like lists of people that I need to contact personally for Entrepreneur. I've done a ton of stuff in that kind of space, just experimenting briefly, $50 here and there, dropping it into Upwork or Fiverr or things like that. That is a great introduction to outsourcing for anybody that's
Hmm.
looking to start it. Upwork and Upwork.com, Fiverr.com. Fiverr has two R's at the end.
Hmm.
I would recommend you go check those out for anybody listening. But that's a great introduction. And the rest of it, I got really lucky because somebody kind of pushed me, and they were constantly like, "Are you sure you don't need help? Are you sure you don't need help?"
Hmm.
And they were just a friend of mine. They were offering a really cheap service, and I knew them, so I trusted them. That happened very organically, and I got really lucky there. But it is huge. And so now I still spend a lot of time doing a lot of stuff and research and things that I don't really enjoy that are difficult to outsource, but I've gotten a lot better, and I don't do any
Hmm.
video editing anymore. I just focus on being creative and having and creating good content. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting. Like I think that is you're pretty you're starting to get on the very right path there. And like I admire that because I think that is something. The first bit of that where it's like, Joe comes to you and he says, "Hey, do you need help?" and you're like, nah, I got it. I don't trust anybody. Like that's kind of where I'm at. And I think a lot of people get stuck because it's like, well, I don't want to be spending all these hours like editing podcasts and videos and stuff like that. But at the same time though, I don't really want to give it to somebody else because it's not tremendous. Like it's not like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, but it's good. Like it's good enough, and it's what you did, and it like there's some pride in that too. So I
For
think that
sure.
you got to make sure that you, and it's again like it's something that I'm struggling with. You got to kind of like maybe put the ego to the side necessarily, and I don't even think of it as that. It's just like I don't like I actually the part that I'm struggling with is like you got to make sure that you have even once you start to get to that step where you start to pay people for different things, you got to make sure that you have like the income as
Oh, for
well,
sure.
like
For
to
sure.
generate that. So, it's just it's all a process, and it's a really fun one. Like I think that's why people are so drawn to starting their own thing because like you're a perfect example of it. You experiment with a bunch of different things, and you learn so much every single day. It's like how is that not going to be fulfilling long term?
Exactly. I agree completely. Yeah. And in terms of you, for what I would recommend,
Yeah,
I know a couple of people in podcasting. If you want me to try to introduce you to somebody
yeah,
that's relatively new in terms of an agency, would
mm-hmm,
love to help there.
mm-hmm,
But something that I kind of did with Joe is when I
mm-hmm,
was just trying to convince myself, like, okay, maybe this will work. Is like I gave him a project that I was going
mm-hmm,
to edit myself anyway, and I was like,
mm-hmm,
all right, you know what? Here, I'll pay you for this, just this one time thing. Let's see how it works. This is
mm-hmm.
what I want. I gave him super detailed kind of analysis.
Yeah,
Here's an example. You've seen my previous example. You've seen all of my previous examples of
right,
content. You know exactly how I like it to work.
right,
Um, Give it a shot, and I'll pay you for
mm-hmm,
that shot. I'll pay you well for that shot. Would love to see what you come up with. And he came back to me with something that I actually liked more than my own stuff.
mm-hmm,
Or I think one of the videos he gave me, I think it was two videos. One of them I like would have changed slightly,
mm-hmm.
but the other one like was better than anything that I could have ever done. I really just enjoyed watching it more than my own stuff.
Right.
It's not ego, it's not pride. It's
Yeah.
just like it's worry. Like you feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not going to come out the same way, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be as good, even though just because like your concept of good very much you're able to control every tiny little bit of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on when you edit it yourself.
Right.
It's supernatural. It's nothing to do with being prideful or
Mm-hmm.
egotistical. So I don't know. That's what I would recommend if you have again the income and the flexibility to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it totally depends on
Yeah.
your situation. So
Yeah. For sure.
yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean, that's, like we said, it's definitely a process and we're both, kind of moving through it on our own separate paths. And actually, I think there's probably a lot of people, just from like being on LinkedIn in the Pittsburgh area, you start to see all these other people that are doing like the same types of things. So I think it's really interesting too, like the type of community and the sense of, togetherness you specifically, but I think all of us in Pittsburgh are starting to build with other, creators and other like entrepreneurs just in the area. I think we probably know a lot of the same people and, I'm excited to, hopefully one day get back into a nice big, hall with everybody. That'd be great to start to network and do all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so, but I mean, that's all tremendous stuff. Like what do you think moving forward here? One of the things that I don't know if I've heard you mention specifically, and it's probably a hard question to answer just because of, where we're at, in our lives right now. What is your like long-term goals? Like, do you think about that at all? Do you think about like where you'd like to be? Maybe not obviously permanently, like nothing's set in stone, but like, what are some of your things that like, oh, I would love to get to this point. I'd love to do this, that.
yeah. I think the first big goal for me is monetizing Entrepreneur fully to the point where
Mm-hmm.
like not like selling out or anything like that. Just
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know how I would even sell out,
Yeah.
but just being able to sustain myself full time doing that at some point. Maybe I think the goal that I have for myself is a year or 2 years in the future. I want to be able to be doing this full time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big hope. That's a big goal. I'm trying to break that down into tasks. We'll see if I get there, but
Mm-hmm.
that's my main big goal. Um, from there, everything becomes a whole ton more flexible. Once I can just do this, I can live anywhere I want. I can travel anywhere I want. I can focus on speaking gigs. I can start focus on just building my community. I'll have a little bit of disposable income to be able to just kind of like fuck around, right? I could take on a
Right.
client or two just so I have a little bit of disposable income, like more disposable income each month, so I can fuck around more and put more money into ads and then grow my audience in different ways. There's a ton that I can experiment with there, but I need to be able to like just do entrepreneur. So if client stuff falls through, if work stuff falls through, if situations fall through in terms of work, I'm still okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still doing my own thing. I'm still sustaining myself fully. I can do whatever I need to do, and that like level of comfort and flexibility is like crucial for being able to just span out in a bunch of different directions and experiment.
Hmm.
So that's my main big goal. I really, really just desperately, more than anything, want to get there. Year, 2 years, hopefully. But the goal for after that, I have tons of ideas. And the thing
Hmm.
that I like about Entrepreneur, the reason that I really enjoyed it is because of the community, right? Same thing with Monster Generation. Like, they're both awesome about the community, but I like Entrepreneur because it's all virtual. The people that I get to meet are incredible. I get to be on a ton of podcasts. I get to meet
Hmm.
a lot of really cool people. And I get to talk to a bunch of awesome students. And it's the people that I get access to by building a network of people of starters and makers and entrepreneurially interested individuals, I think is going to pay like massive dividends in the future because everybody that I know, hopefully I'll help some of them
Hmm.
actually start, but everybody that I know is probably going to be starting something awesome in the future, whether that's a company, whether that's a project, whether that's an agency, whether that's just an initiative, whether it's just making a company that they work for better, whatever it is, they're going to be hopefully innovators. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's massive. And so with that, at some point in the future, I would just love to build some sort of an incubator, some sort of
Hmm.
an accelerator, like an online kind of incubator, where through my content and through personal like kind of discussions and through the resources that I'm able to gather through this network that I'm building online, I'm able to like help people actually get like started, right? And
Hmm.
like my content now shows you hopefully and to some degree how to get started, right? I'm still the content isn't at where I want it to be yet, but it's getting there. But it kind of shows people how to get started, how it shows them how to do all the necessary little things in terms of starting a business,
Hmm.
a tiny little business online or a little
Hmm.
project. Um, if I can like straight up give you like if you are a disadvantaged individual and you have never had the opportunities to like build something, but you've been watching some of my content and you know how it all works and you just want to get that first little step, I want to be able to just like drop 500, $1,000 into a series of like 50 to 100 different little individuals that all really want to start something and just like create a cohort of kids that and just help them each and every one of them just build something awesome, whether
Hmm.
it's profitable or not, whatever, just build something awesome. um, I think for me personally, and for everybody that I've met in this kind of space, building something and creating something yourself is just the most exciting, fulfilling, rewarding, awesome, wonderful thing that you can do for yourself. And it also ends up helping a ton of people. That's the mantra of entrepreneurship. You solve a problem for other people.
Hmm.
So I think that's the best way that I personally can better the world. And I would love to like just create some, whether it's an incubator, whether it's something else, just create some foundation and some program and some process to very, very directly help people build stuff.
Hmm.
So that's what I have envisioned for the future. It's very amorphous and weird and
Hmm.
whatever,
Yeah.
but I just really, really want to get to that point. I think
Yeah.
that's going to be the most fulfilling, exciting thing for me in my
Yeah.
life.
No, it's a very noble cause. I mean, I think that you're well on your way there,
Hopefully.
and I think, and with that, one of the questions, and I think I can kind of infer it from your answer, is like I think a lot of people sometimes, they want to. You gotta want this stuff for the right reason, and it sounds like you want it all for the right reason because you want to help people. So is that? Would you say that's your motivating factor? Would you say because like some people I think are motivated by money, which can be good or bad, but I think like at least for me, it was always fulfillment. It was always happiness. It was I want to wake up in the morning and I want to be excited to do what I'm doing. And would you say that that reigns true for you, or would you say that like there's maybe something else or?
Yeah, so I don't know if like wanting to help people, right reason, wrong reason, whatever. Like I know people that are motivated for money for sure, but they end up helping way more people than I have ever helped, right?
Mm-hmm.
It totally depends on what you're doing. I think just not hurting people is the main thing.
Right.
As long as you're not hurting anybody else, I think you're living a good life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like the main thing, I'm very much a kid at heart, and the main thing that I've always been motivated by entirely is fun. I just want to have
Mm-hmm.
fun, and I want to enjoy myself, and I want to goof around, and I want to smile, I want to laugh,
Mm-hmm.
and that is literally my goal for the rest of my life. I don't if I didn't help anybody, honestly, I would be okay with that. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
as long as I personally am having a blast.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit selfish, whatever. I think everybody has a kind of selfish and like the
Mm-hmm.
secondary thing though. The number two is definitely helping people, like because that is fun for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is really enjoyable. I really
Right.
enjoy seeing like, hey, this was awesome, and people giving me positive feedback and all of that. The reason that I'm sticking with entrepreneurs so much is because it is fun. The reason that I
Mm-hmm.
stuck with Monster Generation for this period of time, even though it's a little bit under wraps right now, is
Mm-hmm.
because it is fun. I really do genuinely enjoy it. I enjoy the people. I enjoy everything that's going on. And I really, really am just getting into the live streams lately. I just
Mm-hmm.
so fucking love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Um, and that is my main motivator. And so being able to, yes, have flexibility and just do my own thing and then help people would be great. But the main thing is like, if I can full time have fun, like fuck, like that's just,
Mm-hmm.
ugh, that's, That is
Yeah.
awesome. That is the life goal. So fun is definitely my main motivator. Number two, I would say, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would love to help people. That's
Mm-hmm.
huge, and that is fun, and it is enjoyable, and I do feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm bettering the world, and that's
Yeah.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And then number three, of course, like money is great.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs money. The more money you have, the more fun you can have
Mm-hmm.
theoretically, and the
Right.
more you can goof around, and the more opportunities that I can bring to myself to have fun and help people and everything else. So money is just kind of a catalyst for a lot of other things.
Right.
And so of course I want more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's fun is definitely my main motivator.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say similarly, just because I think that I'm always that type of thing, and like you said, it's not like a selfish thing. It's just like you got to make sure that you kind of have your kind of ducks in a row, is the way they
Yeah.
like to put it, and then you can kind of, you know, if you understand how to start a business, and then you help somebody else, like that's you don't want to be passing off like bad information, shit like that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, let's jump back to Entrepreneur for a second, because you mentioned the live streams, and I watch them all the time, and I think that they're tremendous content. And it seems like you are building that audience. If we dissect a couple of the pieces, like what have you? I'm interested to hear like some of maybe like maybe the mistakes that you think that you've made, as far as like things that you could pass along to other people, that just to save time, really, is like what I like to do. I always like to learn from other people's mistakes, because then you don't have to make them yourself, right? Which is like
Mm-hmm.
ideal. And obviously though, you learn from experience, and you continue to evolve that way. One of the first things that I was wondering about is like, how do you go about like getting sponsorship? So you're sponsored by Restream, and I think it's V1,
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Mm-hmm.
as of recently. So like, how did you kind of go about that? Did they reach out to you? And like, just in general, what is your experience so far with like getting other people to notice you and pay you money for what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah. So good question. I'm still figuring it out. It's
Yeah.
still a weird process, but I can tell you exactly what I've done so far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Restream, I use them. They're a product that I use, and
Yeah.
as a
Same.
result of me using, yeah, they're great. I love them.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result of me using their product, they noticed the stuff that I was doing, and they thought that I had unique content, and they were also reaching out to a bunch of other streamers on LinkedIn. They wanted LinkedIn to be a big thing, and I streamed
Mm-hmm.
more consistently than a lot of other people on LinkedIn, and I still do.
Right.
And as a result of that, they were like, "Hey, you have a decent audience. You stream a lot. We would love to partner up with you and have you kind of promote our stuff." And I was like, "Well, it
Mm-hmm.
just so happens that I was thinking about kind of doing a sponsorship." They reached out
Yeah.
to me and they were like, how can you promote us, and how can we give back to you for
Hmm.
promoting us? And I was literally like, money. And
Yeah.
so they were
Yeah.
like, sure, that sounds
Yeah.
fine. And I pitched them. I kind of lowballed them. I was like $100 a month. And I don't know if that's highballing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no idea what that is in terms of the
Right.
scale of things. But that's what I've stuck with so far because
Yeah.
people accepted it.
Yeah.
Um, and they were like, sure, that sounds great. And so they gave me a premium profile on a premium account on Restream, and they gave me $100 a month, and they've consistently given that to me. And
Nice.
all I have to do is just kind of promote them.
Nice.
They didn't know. They literally reached out and they were like, "We don't know
Yeah.
how this works. What do you think we should do?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Pay me." And that's
yeah.
literally like where we're at.
Yeah.
And that worked out really nicely because that gave me the credibility
Yeah.
to start finding other sponsors.
How long ago
V1,
was that? Not to
that
interrupt.
was that was I think like 5 months ago,
Okay.
5 or 6 months ago. Yeah, like wow,
Gotcha.
geez, fuck.
Yeah. You're
The fast
gonna have
five
to
months
ask
have
him for
just
a raise, dude.
yeah.
Growth with
Maybe
the
at some
audience.
point. Yeah, that would be great. At some point, yeah. I don't think I've grown too much in the past 5 6 months to the point where that would be a big thing. But um, yeah, it's weird. And then V1 actually did reach out to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have had probably like 20, 25 conversations, like just through text or through like calling people to
Mm-hmm.
ask like products that I really like. I reached out to
Mm-hmm.
Teachable. I reached
Yeah.
out to Stream. I'm going to reach out to Streamlabs. I've reached
Mm-hmm.
out to a few little kind of VC groups.
Yeah.
Um, I reached out to Notion. I reached out to Hunter.io. I reached out to
Mm-hmm.
all these different programs that I use personally. Like Mailchimp was one of them that I'm planning on
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
reaching out to.
Yeah.
I hit them all of them up on LinkedIn, and I found all their marketing people. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I sent like 10 messages, like 10 requests to like all the, I think it was like 15 or 20 different companies that
Yeah.
I've done so far. To 10 people in each of the things. I said, hey, I do content in your kind of space. I promote I promote your product regularly. I absolutely love it. I would love to hop on a call and maybe discuss if I can help promote it any more directly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I sent that exact thing to like probably 200 people
Yeah.
um, in marketing at these companies that I really love, at these products that I already use.
Hmm.
Um, that so far has gone nowhere.
Wow.
And my idea eventually, like all these conversations, everybody's like, oh, we have an affiliate program, oh, we have this. And the affiliate programs are great. If I build my audience up enough, people might buy
Yeah.
via my website, and that would be awesome. But it doesn't help me at all right now because my audience just isn't large enough.
Right.
The only thing that I can really kind of contribute is a good chunk of views from people that are really interested in this stuff. So sponsorships are the way for me right now, I think. But none of those conversations, none of those messages, none of those texts have really ever kind of resulted in anything. But I keep it up because V1 recently reached out to me because I know somebody in community at V1, and they were a friend of mine, and they're in Pittsburgh, and they've been kind of in the sphere for a little while, and they love what I'm doing with No Code. They loved what I was doing with No Code Month. They enjoy it, and they've seen my content for a bunch, and they're really supportive. And they were like, "Yo, I really like your stuff. I think you're doing great. We would love it if we could get you on the platform. We could get you moving on some stuff. I know you're doing a bunch of no-code apps. V1 would be perfect. They're a new no-code app platform, and really design-oriented, which I actually really like."
Yeah.
But they reached out to me and they were like, "Yo, can we sponsor?" And I was like kind of dumbfounded. I was like, "Yeah, sure. It's like $100 a month. Would you be interested in that?" And they're like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And I was like, "Really?" Like it just shocked me that somebody else wanted to do this, but it's
Yeah.
all been inbound thus far.
Mm-hmm.
I keep the LinkedIn stuff up though, reaching out to different people because it has been inbound.
Mm-hmm.
And these companies that are awesome, that I really love, can't sponsor me if they don't know who I am.
Right.
So the idea is to reach out to all these marketing people. If they get into influencer marketing at any point in the future, hopefully at that point I will be a large enough influencer very directly in their space, and they will hit
Right.
me up, right? So the connections are still useful. That kind of network is still useful. Having them there, having them see my content occasionally, is going to be valuable and hopefully pay dividends at some point in the future. But thus far, it's all been inbound, and it's really, really
Mm-hmm.
weird. And
Yeah.
I don't like that it's all been inbound because I
Yeah.
don't have control over it whatsoever at all.
Right.
Really thankful that people are down with my stuff, and it gives me more credibility. When one person sponsors, and I talk about that on every live stream, it says to other people, "You could sponsor this," right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
That's it is weird. Yeah. I was secretly hoping that you would have said that you just asked people and they just
Yeah,
said yes.
I freaking wish, dude.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
really weird. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes. But I mean, again, it speaks to the actual. I think so many people are trying to do these types of things. Maybe not so many. I don't know the actual numbers, but like I think there's a lot of people trying to do this stuff and they're trying to cut corners. And really, there's no way to cut corners. Like I think about this all the time. Like sometimes, at least for me, and maybe it's the same for you. Occasionally, I'll be like, wow, I don't know if like the stuff that I'm doing is having like as big of an impact that I think it should, or I'm like, what the hell am I doing this stuff for? Why am I going live every night and like just like kind of explaining the stuff that I'm going through, similar to you, like and it's like, well, because it's a fucking process and it takes time. Like you can't just like go make one video, like maybe you can make one viral video or whatever, but that's like few and far between. But even then, like it's consistency. The more that I'm learning, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is like you have to just stay relevant. Like you have to continue to post. You have to continue to be consistent with this stuff because that's how people become, and they learn what entrepreneur is. They learn what Mosh Generation is. They learn what all these things are. It's just it's just a process, and it's tough to swallow, I think, sometimes, because like at least for me, like doubt creeps in once in a while, and it's like, well,
For sure.
should I do something else? Like, is this not working? But there's so many other people that have it's taken so long for people to get to that hockey stick. So
Exactly. Yeah. I think I hate this advice, and I never took it. I was always like, that's bullshit, whatever.
yeah.
But when I was just starting and I was listening to a bunch of really popular content creators, the number one thing that I always heard everybody says, and that everybody still says, is, and it's not like helpful, I don't think. It's just like stay consistent, keep posting, right? Great. You should do that. Absolutely.
Right.
Because exactly what you're saying. Most of the stuff that has come to me in terms of opportunities has been luck, and it has been as a result of my slow growth, right? I am very, very slowly creeping up the kind of chain of followers and slowly building kind of just a network. That is just a painfully slow process. It takes forever. And I want to talk about a couple of creators that I respect and how they kind of hit that hockey stick. Hopefully I will too. But the best advice that I ever received there, and it totally rings true, is just keep making stuff. You can't fail if you keep making stuff. Blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, 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 whatever. I hate that advice because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
teach you at all to expect a certain point or like a certain degree of like, okay, eventually at a certain point
Mm-hmm.
you do hit that hockey stick. Okay, if you perfect yourself to a certain degree, you do kind of hit your stride. The best thing that I can think is if you are doing content for a really long time and literally nobody is noticing, and like I mean genuinely nobody, like you're
Mm-hmm.
posting it in all the right places, you're doing promotion actively, and you're putting it in front of all the right faces, and you're not getting any positive feedback, even a little bit. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
getting even a little bit of positive feedback,
Mm-hmm.
maybe think about changing what you're making, right?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly. Um, at that point, you should consider it, but at least do it for a few months and
Yeah.
really actively try to promote it. Put it on Facebook groups, post on social media, like
Right.
maybe run a little bit of ads, like something, right? Just
Right.
try something of active promotion to see and try to find your
Right.
audience, right? If that doesn't work, try changing content. Try maybe mixing things up. If you give even a little bit of positive feedback and you are building even a small tiny community, even if it's just your close friends that really enjoy the stuff that you're making but actively follow,
Mm-hmm.
your close friends are busy. They're not just going to hop
Yeah.
on because they like you. They're going to
Right.
hop on because they like the stuff that you're making, right? And then
Right.
also because they like you. Even if it's just like my friends and family, like the people that I knew very directly were the only people that followed my
Mm-hmm.
stuff initially, but they were
Yep.
really consistently there and they were really
Right.
consistently genuinely interested. I could tell because
Mm-hmm.
they would tell me that.
Right.
Even if you're getting that small amount of positive feedback, keep making stuff because
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it just takes fucking time.
Yeah.
And like it just the way the algorithms work on the internet, the way that your posts and stuff is going to be shown to more people is just the more stuff you make, the more seriously the internet takes you in terms of algorithms and in
Mm-hmm.
terms of people. If people see you over and over and over again, suddenly they're going to be interested. If the internet and the algorithm and Google and whatever and YouTube and LinkedIn see you over and over and over again, they're going to take you more seriously. It just takes fucking time. And in the process of that, try to consistently get better. Like I actively am trying to improve the stuff that I'm making. I went through marketing month and I went through no code month so that I could learn how to promote myself, so that I could learn how to actually build things in really exciting ways and really more actively pump ideas out instead of just theorizing and talking about stuff. I want to actually do things. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
actively trying to improve my content because that makes it, in my mind, more exciting. If it makes it more exciting, maybe I'll get more followers.
Mm-hmm.
If you even get a little bit of positive feedback, just keep trying to build and improve because that is going to eventually net you more people. And it's going to be a slow growth process and it's going to suck for a long time, but eventually you will get there. Um,
Right.
I follow this guy named Captain Disillusion on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like 2 million followers. He's a relatively popular YouTuber.
Yeah.
Um, he debunks internet hoaxes. So if you see like a fake news video, right, there's
Mm-hmm.
this giant thing that's doing all these crazy things, but it looks really
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
He goes in, he knows all these VFX things, he knows all these intense video, he's an expert in this kind of field.
Mm-hmm.
And he debunks the living hell out of all these different videos and shows you how they actually work and what people did to edit those videos and how they make these fake viral videos.
Right.
Um, he got really popular off of that eventually. But I learned that I saw him do, I looked back through his profile and I saw he's been doing it for, I think, 12 years. He's been doing videos for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, he had, I think it was 250,000 followers. And 4 years ago, he had 100,000 followers. And so 4 years ago, he had been doing it for 8 years and he had 100,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
Probably relatively slow growth in terms of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
After 2 years, he more than doubled. And after
Mm-hmm.
another 2 years, he like multiplied that by 8 and he's now over 2 million followers. He has
Mm-hmm.
very much hit a hockey stick insane curve. He only makes videos like once every like 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
He makes some really high quality videos.
Right.
Um, his hockey stick, that's an insane hockey stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's very much like kind of trickling. 100,000 is not like a lot. Like 100,000 is a lot. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet, even close.
Right.
I'm like at almost like 9,000, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
almost like 10K overall.
Right.
But like I'm not even close to that. It's not on YouTube. It's on LinkedIn. It's on
Mm-hmm.
a smaller, more undeveloped platform. But after 8 years, he got to about 100,000. I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm at 10,000. So if there's
Mm-hmm.
even a slight hockey stick, I will probably reach that same point. But now he's at 12 years, and maybe you don't want to invest 12 years, whatever. But that is his hockey stick. It took him literally 12 years to get to a really solid level of popularity that people think he deserves. And now he's moving up really consistently. But that is
Right.
like an insane like path. Like 8 years to get to 100,000. Next 2 years, more than doubles. Next 2 years, like
Mm-hmm.
8 tuples. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy how that kind of happens.
Yeah.
But eventually you just have to hit that point, and that's where everybody gets popular. all the viral videos, everything that you've seen, all the popular people, they did not get like famous overnight. If you ask any one of them, they have been making videos for 2, 4, 10 years. It's
Mm-hmm.
just been a whole long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks, and I hate that, but
Yeah.
it's how it is, and so
Yeah.
we're all suffering through it.
Yeah. I think there was one specific point in there that I think reigns very true, and it's the fact that not only do you have to make the content, obviously that's important. You got to try to make it educational or entertaining or whatever your niche is. But the other thing that's extremely important, and actually is probably better advice than, like you said, just make shit. You're talking more about like observe, like really observe what's happening on the back end of it. So when you make the content, and you have to like make sure that you're not just like making content and nobody cares at all about it. You talked about like at least a little bit of positive feedback. And I think that one thing that I've started to realize is that you have to make the content, you have to put it somewhere, whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, or wherever. But like even more importantly, like there is a second layer of it where you have to tell people that you did shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that is if not just as important, because if you don't get it out there and you like disseminate it into like the population of your followers and everything like that, obviously that kind of goes without saying, but like at the same time though, it's like you do have to do that. It's not like you're just going to put a YouTube video up and shit happens. So there's that. But the other thing, like I would say more the second step of that is you have to figure out, we talked about it a little bit before, who your target audience is. And that is a hard thing to do, I think, because I noticed that on some of your streams during Marketing Month, you were posting in all these different places, you were advertising, and you can jump in and talk about that, and you were doing all these different things. But it's still like hard. It's like you can't just go to like a entrepreneurship group and just like post it in there. Oh, everybody cares now. It's like it's not that. It's like persistence and like really trying to refine and see where the people that would be interested in your stuff specifically, like where they're at, like what they do. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it's really, really weird. I'm still very much figuring it out, but
Yeah.
for context on that, yeah, like I think it was like a month ago, I was doing Marketing Month, and I was just a little marketing label that I wanted to like advertise that I was trying to learn marketing for this period of time, right? And people really liked it. People really liked Marketing Month. And they were down with it. At least among my current followers. Great. But I genuinely had no idea how to market myself. I was just relying on LinkedIn pushing me out to the right people, right? Just the algorithm working.
Right.
I relied on that for so long, and it kind of just went okay, and I was happy with that. But I figured like there's got to be a better way to promote myself, and so I read an article by Harry Dry on marketingexamples.com. It says how I promote my content, and he got from I think it was 0 to I think 19,000 followers in a little over a year. I think like email subscribers, not just followers on social media, because he promoted really, really great content. And he made really great stuff, and he advertised it in the right ways. And what he did, and what I've been trying to do, is you go and you find every possible community on the internet about your shit that you can find. I have found like obscure little forums called like the Fast Lane forum, which is this dinky little weird like kind of mini community of just like people posting random stuff and random threads about entrepreneurship in general, right? And I found 2 of those little forums online. I found a couple subreddits that are interested in this kind of stuff. I've found like about 100 different Facebook groups that are kind of interested in like remote workers or freelancers or digital workers or SaaS marketers or entrepreneurs or people interested in startups and things like that. And all of that, I tried to find every possible, and Hacker News and a couple of other little places. Because he has similar content to mine, I wanted to push in the same directions, and so I copied a lot of the places that he promotes off of him. But I get that's the same kind of advice that I've recommended to a bunch of different people, whether they're writing a book, whether they're doing anything. Once you find all these little communities, you got to be really careful, and you got to test different things, because like every single week I get shit on immensely in a bunch of different places on the internet because I post it in a way that they don't like, and that's just the reality of the internet, especially Reddit. Reddit fucking hates you. You are.
Yeah.
But Facebook groups are also absolutely brutal. And the best way that I can get clicks is by self-promoting. But if I self-promote, then some people absolutely hate it. Some higher quality groups don't care. I'm still very much figuring it out.
Yeah.
But once you have hopefully over 100 different areas and communities specifically related to you, like I know one of my mentees is writing a fantasy book. And I said to her, yo, here's like 5 subreddits that I found immediately, just a couple of quick Google searches. Participate in those, ask
Hmm.
questions, don't like provide a link, but just like maybe in the comments you can drop a little link to your Instagram or something like that, but
Right.
don't self-promote, just ask questions and be active and be interested. And
Hmm.
then sometimes if your content highly relates to what's going on, make a post and say, hey, I actually learned how to promote my content in a couple of different places. Check this out for me
Hmm.
as an example. Or I built a no-code tool in 5 minutes and it was actually really fun. Here, check this out. And you just got to try it. Like one of the
Hmm.
it's and that's the way that you're going to go to some degree mini viral, and that's how people are going to find you. Actually, I went kind of mini viral on Hacker News, which is Y Combinator, a famous accelerator over in California.
Hmm.
They're like news outlets, and anybody can post there. And I
Yep.
posted a little thing. It was like um, a quick rundown, a super quick rundown on SEO, because I wrote a
Hmm.
little article on SEO and how it all functions. And I linked to a bunch of different little tools that I've used and everything like that. But all I did was drop the link and the title in Hacker News. And because of that little link and title and a decent like kind of bit of content, um, I got over 2,000 visits to my site from that one little link in that
Hmm.
one right place at the right time. It's
Hmm.
just about testing. And so I'm trying to
Right.
emulate that. I haven't nearly even gotten close to that since then. I got one little viral post on Reddit, and it's still, I'm still figuring out. It's still really, really weird. But just find every single community talking about your stuff on the internet, whatever niche you are in, whatever broad topic you're in. Just participate in those communities, be active there, and try posting your content in a few different ways. Never self promote, never say, hey, I did this thing. I'm still struggling with that because it's weird, because how else do you really phrase it?
Right.
Um, but just experiment with promoting your stuff in an organic and soft way, without putting pressure on people. And then people start to find you. And that has
Hmm.
been really, really productive. But like, you have to be doing that. Otherwise, you don't know if people care about your shit, because people
Right.
will not just find your shit. I got really
Right.
lucky. I got in at LinkedIn at the right time, and I
Right.
had a bunch of connections already there, and they helped me grow that initial audience.
Right.
That is, for 99% of other people making stuff, that is not true. So you need to actively at least try to promote in a few different places on the internet to see if people really care.
Yep.
And negative feedback is just negative feedback. Ignore negative feedback. If people are
Hmm.
just shitting on you for no reason, it's
Right.
very obvious.
Yep.
Genuinely ignore that. They are not.
Yep.
They are not telling you that your content is bad. They are just grumpy, and that is
Yeah.
the internet.
Yep.
The if you listen to positive feedback, listen to negative but genuinely helpful feedback.
Hmm.
Don't listen to just fuck you feedback,
Right.
because that's going to be a ton, and I get shit on every week for
Yeah.
that, and it just sucks. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you have to be doing that if you before you know whether or not you found something awesome or not. So it
Right.
sucks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just make fun of the negative feedback on your stream.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny. Um, I have it's a random question, but it's very pertinent to everything there. So like you obviously strike me as somebody who's doing a lot of different things and like experimenting with a lot of different things, sort of like in the same, like ecosystem, but still a lot of things. Do you have any trouble with like organization? Like, is there like I'm interested in that as like a entrepreneur to entrepreneur type thing, and maybe some other people out there that might be struggling with that. You have any things that you that you do, or things that you're struggling with there?
Great question. Yeah, yeah. So, up until relatively recently, I was just all over the place, especially
Yeah.
when I started this initially.
Yeah.
When I started kind of experimenting, I started building a couple websites. I started partnering with a few people trying to build like affiliate programs. I started like I was just
Hmm.
starting Entrepreneur, and I was making videos there. I
Yeah.
was doing like literally, I made a list, and it was like I was trying to do like 11 different little projects at once. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I still encourage that for your first
Right.
little bit, because you learn an absolute ton.
Mm.
Every little project that I jumped into, I now learn. I know how to do affiliate marketing. I know how to build
Mm.
websites. I know how to sell stuff on the internet to some
Mm.
small degree. I know how to build
Right.
content. Like trying a bunch of different stuff and failing and fucking up at it. Still
Mm.
a great experience. Would highly recommend it. As I kind of progressed, I started to see certain things take traction. That's why I stuck with Moss, and that's why I stuck with Entrepreneur, and that's why I dropped everything else. I'm still trying I'm trying an agency.
Hmm.
I'm trying to do deal flow for a small little group in town. I'm still
Right.
trying a stupid amount of stuff, and it's
Hmm.
not necessarily helpful.
Hmm.
But you can take on an absurd amount of stuff, as long as that absurd amount of stuff has like a lot of time limits. The reason that I like taking on a bunch of different things is because a lot of it relies on other people, right? And
Hmm.
when, like for instance with deal flow, I'm kind of in just conversations, and I've signed some contracts about doing deal flow for a local group. That's great for a local investment group. That is going to mostly be waiting for conversations to happen on my end. It'll be a bunch of outreach initially, but
Hmm.
then it'll just be waiting for conversations to happen on my end. And that waiting for conversations to happen in those occasional meetings are not going to take up an obscene amount of my time. It's not like I have
Hmm.
to like dedicate constantly 10 hours of work per week to that. So I'm able to take on some, like, I still encourage taking on a bunch of different projects, just not too many if you clearly don't have time for them. So take on a bunch of stuff. But I have recently, I think in the past like 6, 7 months, started using Notion,
Mm-hmm.
Notion.so. Great
Yep.
website. Fucking love it. I've
Yep.
organized literally my entire life on there.
Nice.
Anything that I'm building in terms of content, anything that I'm doing in terms of stuff that I need to save, everything all is there. It exists. It's all in one place. And that has like saved my mind and an obscene amount of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And if something needs to happen from there, I pour it over to my to-do list. If something is on, I like also just aggressively worship my to-do list. I use
Yeah.
Todoist. It's a little app, and then I use Gmail as my two to-do lists. And that
Mm-hmm.
has been a process that I've kind of refined over the past 2 years. But when I started, I was fucking all over the place. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was missing meetings. I was doing a bunch of different. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I just like if you get traction on something, focus on that. If you don't have traction on something, but you've been working on it for the same amount of time, maybe think about pushing it to the side. Think about whether you're actually solving a problem or you're like actually helping people, or if the content that you're making is actually valuable. Just like every once in a while, think like, okay, what are the 7, 10, whatever things that I'm trying to do? How many of those things are working out? How many of those things are actually netting me like sustainable revenue or fun or like valuable resources? And how many of them are not? And if they are not,
Mm-hmm.
consider dropping them.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be kind of brutal with prioritization. I'm not brutal with prioritization. I'm
Mm-hmm.
semi-brutal with prioritization. If I like something, I'm still going to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why I do Entrepreneur, because it allows me to just fuck around with a bunch of different things. Um, but yeah, I would recommend Notion if you're looking for like a
Yeah.
dashboard to just organize all your information on.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely check it out. But it's just kind of a process. I think creating a to-do list, creating long-term goals, organizing when you have to do things and when they have to happen
Mm-hmm.
on a to-do list app is really, really important. And then like having a calendar, using Google Calendar, like aggressively managing, like, okay, this time is blocked off for just me stuff. This time is blocked off for just me work. This time is blocked off for playing video games and just
Right.
actually having a good time instead of aggressively working.
Right.
Like blocking off time to do things and not tasks.
Right.
Just like general stuff is important. And just don't take on too much. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If you clearly don't have time, like you can't do this because you have to do this
Yeah.
all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you need to drop some stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not at that point anymore, but I was at that point for like a whole solid year.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's weird. I don't know if that kind of fully answers your question. I know it was
Yeah,
a little
no,
bit.
no, absolutely. I think in the follow up was that, I mean, I guess you kind of answered it there. Like, was there ever a time where you think that like you were doing too much and then you kind of just disseminated, I guess, basically, with more organization and more prioritization, which is a tough thing to do, when you're
Yeah,
young and you just have a bunch of different ideas and you want to do a bunch of things, but
yeah,
it's definitely, it can be tough.
it's
So,
necessary.
yeah,
I didn't want to. It just kind of ended up happening. Like people would drop out on projects because I wasn't able to follow up on them, and that's just
right.
at the point where you need to chill out and do less. Yeah.
Yeah, feel that. So what is like a normal, what's like a normal, I want to say like a normal day in the life, but like what, but even more so than just like work. You kind of talked about it there where you're like, you were time blocking a little bit of like, work here, work for clients. And I know you talk about a lot of that. And then you have your streams twice a week and you have obviously, I'm sure a bunch of time dedicated to actually creating like content that you post on, because you not only do the stuff, but then you basically write about it. I know you have the blog on Entrepreneur, and then you also have all the posts and everything on LinkedIn. So maybe just give me like sort of like even like a week, just like in general, like very overview. And within there, what are some things that you do that are outside of this ecosystem? Like I know you said you play video games occasionally. Like, what are some of the other things that you do just to balance your life, really?
Yeah, totally. So good question. So a day in the week in terms of just like my productivity schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been a little bit lax on just LinkedIn content in general. I feel like I've been doing okay on that.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to create a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
but I block off time to create all of the content that I make. So
Mm-hmm.
on Monday, I make a little post about the previous week's stream. I wrote an article, whatever. I post that there and I try to promote that aggressively on LinkedIn to try to get people to visit my site. And that's usually a very self-promote. I put a link in the actual like LinkedIn post. LinkedIn usually hates that, but I try to
Mm-hmm.
aggressively kind of promote it, and that works
Yeah.
okay. So that's my
Yeah.
that's my Monday post.
Yeah.
Tuesday post, I make a little quick video on my little live stream software about, hey, this is what we're doing tomorrow on the live stream, right? Just a little
Mm-hmm.
quick intro. This is what we're checking out. Would love to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Wednesday, I actually do the live stream. I usually have it scheduled. I don't like plan very far ahead of time. I usually have a half hour to prepare
Right.
beforehand because I like to keep it just like
Yeah,
frantic and whatever because I
for
feel like
sure.
that's more me.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll change that at some point in the future. I used to have like agendas because a bunch of people
Hmm.
were encouraging me to like create agendas when I'm
Yeah.
doing educational stuff and I'm just talking about something for the
Right.
entire time. Then an agenda is important because
Hmm.
otherwise I just get sidetracked. But if I'm
Hmm.
doing something, then that's not too hard. And usually I focus on like one or two, three things to
Hmm.
do or talk about while I'm on stream. So stream happens. That's great. At the end of the day, at some point during that day on Wednesday, I drop the stream into a Google Drive folder. I text my editor, Joe, and I'm like, yo, new episode is up. Let me know when you get it done. He just compiles it into a series of highlights that I can then post on my website. Um, and he gives me a little bit of show notes for every little clip that he pulls.
Hmm.
Then on Thursday and Friday, I usually have some piece of content. I need to get better at the Thursdays and Fridays because I want to post more like startup ideas suck and a few other
Hmm.
little like pieces of content that I used to do. Um, I've been a little bit flopped on that recently, but that usually kind of is where I post those bits. Um, and on Saturday, I do another live stream, and I have I do the little live stream that's mostly a goof off live stream. I don't prepare at all for that. We just play video games and we talk about stuff, and that's fun. And that's where I just catch up with people that come up with ideas for maybe the next stream, and that goes great. Sunday, I have a blocked off schedule. My Sundays are usually busy as hell because I have a blocked off schedule to come up with that little extra content. I film ahead of time what the stream for the next week is going to be on my little streaming software. So I have that prepared for Tuesday so I can just drop it and post it. I usually
Hmm.
write the content for the post so I can just drop it and post it super quickly on Tuesday. I pre-write all of that content. I put it all in Notion. I have a Notion calendar table that is all scheduled out. Notion is great for scheduling content and creating a content calendar.
Hmm.
I schedule all of that out. I schedule the rest of the content for next week out, and it's good and it's done. Awesome. I then put the highlights that Joe edited, because usually they're done by then, into an email. I post it on my website. I spend usually an hour or two writing about the entire process, and I make it a highly shareable form of content, like Harry Dry does, to
Hmm.
then push on Facebook groups, on Reddit, on everywhere else. And sometimes I post the full thing. Whatever. You should read the article if you're looking to promote stuff like that. But I usually
Hmm.
try to create something that's highly shareable and interesting and is hype about the stream that we did last week so that I can try to find more people that are interested in my stuff.
Hmm.
I read all that up. I posted on the website. I put that all into an email for my email list, and I send it out. I scheduled to send it out on Monday. And then back on Monday, I do the same thing. I promote on LinkedIn, but I promote that same stuff everywhere. I make a tweet. I link the tweet in the post.
Hmm.
I push everything out on every possible platform. And usually my Mondays are also busy as hell because I'm like for 2-3 hours, I'm pushing all the content that I made on Sunday and wrote on Sunday out to the world in every possible place that I possibly can.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how I kind of manage all of the content in terms of moss generation. I have a recurring note on my to-do list app every month. Usually I say, email or text Andy, when are we going to do the next moss generation thing, right?
Hmm.
In terms of entrepreneur and other things like that. If I have to follow up with somebody, I say, follow up with this person. If they didn't reach back out to you, follow up with them then, right?
Hmm.
My Todoist app is full of constantly recurring items. Or
Hmm.
every single week, or every Tuesday, or every Wednesday, or every Monday, or every whenever, I always have to do this one thing, and it's a weekly kind of schedule where I create content, or I post a thing, or I reach out to somebody. Usually Monday is when I reach out to everybody as well that hasn't gotten back to me from the following week. Um, I'm constantly like resetting little bots to do much of it.
Hmm.
It's all on a weekly schedule, and I am able to schedule that really nicely on Todoist. And my
Gotcha.
calendar just kind of reflects when I'm supposed to have meetings, when I'm supposed to have live streams. If I'm supposed to
Hmm.
talk to somebody, great. I have weekly meetings set up for different things that I'm doing as well. Like I have
Hmm.
weekly check-ins for each of my freelancing gigs,
Hmm.
so that's on a weekly routine as well. And then if I know that I need to like schedule some time to hang out with my girlfriend, I'm not
Hmm.
like insanely
Yeah.
busy, but like I need to like spend time, and otherwise I
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
forget and I'll just put stuff on my to do list. So I
Right.
usually like a week ahead of time, I'll schedule like Friday, Saturday, whatever. This is time to just goof off, have
Yeah.
fun, make pasta, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Just enjoy yourself. And usually if I have free time at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, I'll wake up, I'll play some video games to get started. I have my schedule is really, really like neat right now. I feel like
Hmm.
I've gotten into a nice flow where I'm
Right.
able to goof off after I'm done for the day, I'm probably going to play like 2 hours of video games and chill out, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get back to work.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, everything is on a weekly schedule, and I really like to do this, and I really like I really like my Google Calendar because I'm able to set like weekly reminders. This is the block where you're supposed to do this, or this is a task item that you have to never forget for each
Right.
week to stay consistent, because most of the stuff that I do very much relies on being consistent. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know if that kind
Gotcha.
of answers the question.
No, that was absolutely that was what I was looking for there. Thank
I'm
you.
glad.
The the funny part that I was chuckling at there was like the scheduling time to hang out with your girlfriend, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Mine's the same way. It's
Oh yeah.
it's
Oh
like
yeah.
we're trying to do some stuff here, and it's like we get caught up in all of it because we enjoy it, right? And
Yeah,
it's what
exactly.
we
It's
want. It's
fun.
what we want to do. So it's interesting there to I ask that because I often find myself sometimes like you're doing things and my question to you like is just from that schedule. That's a lot of stuff. Do you ever like feel like do you kind of ever get like feel like shitty about like just the amount of because we like it, but there's like this weird thing that happens, at least to me and maybe other people, where it's like you want to do it and you have to do it, but it's like it's just a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you have to schedule kind of like other time to kind of like hang out and do these other things. It's just a balancing act, and I don't think it ever stops. But like, it's a real thing that I think a lot of people go through.
Oh yeah. So this is actually a huge kind of area that I kind of talk about. I try to talk about it a little bit on my live streams. A
Yeah.
bunch of my other friends are actually in that kind of same space. It's finding time to just like relax is like not finding time to relax is a very slippery slope, because a lot of
Right.
people in this space doing a lot of stuff, trying a lot of things, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's like just very early on.
Mm-hmm.
For the past like year, I wouldn't say, well, no, like 6 months ago, I was struggling with it. Now I'm not
Mm-hmm.
struggling with it as much, but
Right.
6 months ago, and then for the year and a half before that, I was definitely having problems, because I would literally, as soon as I got out of college, I wasn't making time for stuff. And yes, I would
Mm-hmm.
hang out with friends, but when I would hang out with friends, I would know that I had a big to-do list, and I would constantly be looking at my
Ah.
to-do list or my email and be like,
Yep.
you know
I
what?
was gonna
I
say
should
that.
have spent a little bit more time doing this, or maybe I should
Yeah.
have stayed up later last night, whatever.
Yeah.
Because even though some of the stuff isn't time sensitive, it feels like because I haven't been productive, I'm
Yeah.
not allowed to have fun,
Yeah.
right? Or it feels like the fun is diminished because I haven't been productive and I don't deserve this, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like fun anymore. It feels like a supplemental activity for just like enrichment, like you're at a zoo and like, I got to play with a ball for an hour a day, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to like eating or hunting, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever that fucking is.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like real fun anymore because you get so obsessed with work. And I was
Mm-hmm.
there for a really long time. I was there for a good probably six to 8 months, and only recently have I kind of like started to lean out of that, because
Yeah.
I've very aggressively started prioritizing anything on my
Yeah.
to-do list that I know I'm probably not going to get done today. I move
Yeah.
to next week, or I move to later. If I can
Yeah.
move it, I move it.
Yeah.
I don't need to be aggressively productive right now. I'm on a nice path. I'm making progress. I am going to
Mm-hmm.
live a whole lot longer than I think I am. Like
Right.
it feels like everything is so finite, but
Yeah.
you are literally going to burn yourself out. You're going to hate your life. You're not going to be able to have fun, and then you're going to be
Yeah.
way less productive anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not making time to just chill out and relax. And so
Yeah.
hobbies are important. Working out is super important. Playing video games and goofing off with friends and texting people and watching a stupid amount of YouTube and just like enjoying yourself is important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's really, really, I don't know exactly the process to like get out of that.
Yeah.
But if you notice yourself unable to have fun because you feel like you weren't busy enough that day, you
Mm-hmm.
have a problem, and you need
Yeah.
to work on that. You need to
Yeah.
think about that a lot every day, and move shit off of your to-do list so you literally have free time during a day. And if you have free
Mm-hmm.
time during a day, you will eventually start to find out ways to fuck off and enjoy
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
But it's really, really scary. And I like one of my clients works in this space for like I think the stat is like 94% or 92% of highly successful people are unhappy, and they self-define themselves as unhappy because
Mm.
nobody takes the time when you're doing things to like enjoy yourself. And that's such a weird like amorphous thing to say, like, oh, I got to enjoy myself, right? You have to
Yeah.
like figure out things that genuinely bring you. I can't give advice on that, right? But you just
Yeah.
need to have some free time during the day,
Yeah.
even if it's just doing nothing and lying in bed and watching YouTube, whatever. You need to
Mm-hmm.
have some period of time during that day when you're allowed to do that. When
Mm-hmm.
you don't have anything on your to-do list and you don't have anything you have to do, because then it starts to get fun again.
Yeah.
It's really scary. It's really, really
Yeah.
worrisome. And because I aggressively thought about that every day, like I cannot fall into that trap. I cannot fall into that trap.
Yeah.
I managed to kind of get out of it. And I'm still in a little bit. I always get
Yeah.
guilty when I'm not doing stuff, but I'm able to enjoy
Yeah.
myself now. Yeah, you got to be really, really careful with that.
Yeah.
Everybody that I
Hmm.
know in this space struggles with that exact same fucking thing. It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're not the only one.
Yeah, I feel you. Well, that's good to know. And like I said, I think that makes sense. I mean, you got to make sure that when you are having that relaxation time, you're actually enjoying it, because it's not like, because then you feel fucked like both ways. Like if you're doing the stuff that you want to do and like working and stuff, and you're like, wow, this is kind of getting shitty. Like I might need a break. Then you feel bad there, and then you take a break, and you're like, fuck, I should be working. It's just like
Exactly.
it's
Oh,
a
it's
vicious
that.
cycle. You can't
Yeah.
fall into that. So
Hmm.
that's terrific advice. Um, so I think it's about time for our last three questions that I have no name for. I've just dubbed the final three questions, just that I
Sounds
want to
great.
ask everybody, because I think they're very indicative with everything that we talk about, on each episode here on Fuel by Progress. It tells a lot about the guests that we have, and like the story and the context and everything like that. But I think that there's a couple things here that are really exciting and like really tell even a deeper story. The first question is, who are you, like, and I always have trouble explaining this. Who or what groups or entities or whatever would you say have had the three biggest influences on your life? And the reason that I ask this question is I think that it really, if people answer this question honestly, it can kind of really define, like, the type of person they are, like where, they get their stuff. And the other thing is, if they're indirect, I would call like people on the internet, right? Like if you say Gary Vee or something like that, right? Then like other people can go and also be influenced by those people, and potentially, like kind of tap into like where you're at, where I'm at, all that sort of stuff. And then if they're direct, then obviously that's a totally different thing, like your mom, your dad type of thing. Then that's also huge, and really just, speaks to the type of person you are. So if off the top of your head, who would you say like the top three that have had the biggest impact?
Yeah. So number one would probably be just the startup community that I
Hmm.
built when I went out networking, when I went out talking to people.
Yeah.
That very much inspired me to get along this path. I fell in love with the type of people that kind of followed that like experiment on their own. I fell in love with the type of people that build companies that, even if it's not like monetarily valuable, like build nonprofits, like build projects, like help other people, right?
Hmm.
Solve problems. I fell in love with problem solvers, and that was number one for sure, absolutely.
Hmm.
Number two, my parents. My dad keeps me motivated. He's very aggressive. He's on my ass all the time, and I
Hmm.
love it. It really helps me, and helps me keep myself motivated. I think if you have somebody, it doesn't necessarily have to be your family, but if you have a mentor, like
Hmm.
I would put mentors in kind of in that same space.
Hmm.
People that I like very much look up to, that I have either found, or professors, or people that I've stayed in touch with, or friends that are doing awesome things, like just like people in my family or extended friend family kind of group,
Hmm.
that I have met, that have been in my life for a very long period of time,
Hmm.
that are interested in the stuff that I do, and like aggressively try to push me to make more.
Hmm.
They're the big motivators. Yeah, for sure. They help keep me just like every time that I'm feeling down, like, yeah, am I making good stuff? Is this like going anywhere? They'll be like, yo, your shit's great.
Hmm.
Helps me a lot. That's definitely inspired me a bunch.
Hmm.
And then probably, this is gonna sound really dumb, but like YouTubers,
Yeah.
like Captain Disillusion. I really like the stuff that he makes. I
Hmm.
really like how he kind of phrases it. I've seen him do presentations and talks. I've never met the guy,
Hmm.
but I've seen him do presentations and talks, and how he kind of does stuff. He's a dork. He's a dweeb. If you actually
Hmm.
look him in person, he's awkward. He doesn't
Yeah.
really know how to like do stuff,
Yeah.
but he like creates great content because he tries really hard at it.
Hmm.
And he's been really, really consistent with it. Another
Yeah.
one is probably Game Grumps. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Game Grumps. They're just a
I don't think I'll
little
have to
yet
check them
let's
out.
play. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
super fun. I watch
Yeah.
them literally 24/7 all day while I'm doing work, whatever.
Yeah.
They just make a bunch of content every day. They're let's players. They play
Hmm.
dumb video games and they laugh
Yeah.
over it. And they're two comedians that are just like good at being stupid funny,
Yeah.
and it's just very, very relaxing. And that has kept me sane. Some of the stories that they've told have helped me personally.
Hmm.
Mostly it is just like they make really consistent content. They talk about making consistent content. They
Hmm.
talk about just hearing them like as super successful people on the internet, but just like be like super normal people. Like a lot of the stuff they say is just dumb, and I'm like, why the hell you're an idiot? Like that's not like
Yeah.
I kind of like it's silly to me, some of the stuff that they say, but they're very relaxing, very soothing. I
Yeah.
enjoy listening to them, and just hear them be normal while they're like relatively like mid tier famous
Right.
on the internet. Just
Yeah.
like kind of like gives like I don't know. It makes me feel like, okay, I'm a
Yeah.
normal dude. there's nothing different about me from them.
Right.
It kind of helps, and I don't know. It's more of a
Yeah.
relaxation thing, but just
It's
it's
very
kind of a
relatable.
grounding element. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
I
I don't
gotcha.
know. Those are kind of the three things off the top of my head that I can think
Yeah.
of. I assume those were a little general, but yeah, that's what I would say.
No, I mean, I think especially when we're dealing with as many, like influxes of influences, in today's day and age, like that's kind of why I extend it to like groups or like entities, because I get a lot of my influence off YouTube as well. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Next question is, it's very vague, but like if you were talking to, potentially students, like you do public speaking, or like maybe even another example I like to give is like later down the line, if you have kids or something like that,
Hmm.
what is like the best advice that you would give? Just kind of like a blanket type thing, best life advice, business advice, however you want to steer it. But just like somebody comes to you and asks you, hey Max, what would you recommend just in general for me to live a happy life or a good life? What would you say?
Yeah, happy and good life is I'm kind of still like figuring that out. Like
Yeah.
my happiness comes from entrepreneurship. My happiness
Yeah.
comes from trying things and learning things, and that's
Right.
really, really genuinely fun for me.
Right.
I would say for anybody, even if it's not entrepreneurship, the number one thing that's helped me is if you're really interested in something and you know something is really fun,
Mm-hmm.
and you are even like remotely social.
Mm-hmm.
I'm introverted. I don't like talking to people usually. I
Mm-hmm.
stick to myself, and I like whenever I have to have a meeting, it's a chore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy people. I enjoy hanging with people
Right.
I'm close to them.
Right.
It's so even being introverted and even like just typically staying to myself, I still enjoy to some degree talking to people. If you
Mm-hmm.
are interested, like if you want to become a professional swimmer, if you want to become like a professional like parks and recreation manager, like whatever the heck that you want to think you want to do, even if you don't end up doing it, if you
Mm-hmm.
think you want to do that thing and you're interested in doing that thing, get on email, get on social media, get on Twitter, get on whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
reach out very directly to these people as a young individual. Like
Mm-hmm.
just say, hey, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I
Mm-hmm.
want to learn what the fuck I'm doing. You're
Yeah.
fucking doing that.
Yeah.
Can we hop on a call? Can I meet you? Can I text you occasionally? Can
Yeah.
I just like shoot you a little proposal? Like whatever. Just like try stuff and meet people that are already doing the things that you want to do, because it's going to, first of all, humble you and make you think you're
Mm-hmm.
not so cool no matter what stage you're at. And
Right.
second of all, it's going to just like, it's going to teach you way more than school could ever teach you, than anything could ever teach you. And it's going to get you started in that awesome thing. And you're going to learn
Mm-hmm.
very, very quickly whether or not you like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say reach out to people and talk to people that are doing the things that you want to do. It's not hard. You can
Mm-hmm.
use just little hunter, like email finders on the internet, and just shoot people emails or use social media.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what I would say. That is 100% what I would say. Just participate in conversations and constantly be reaching out to people that are doing cool things that you think are cool.
Gotcha. That's great advice, man.
Yeah.
Last one is kind of a layup, but it's, I appreciate every guest that comes on FBP, and the ones that are pretty much everybody, but like especially yourself, like the ones that are doing cool, interesting stuff. I want to make sure that anybody that listens to this episode knows where to find more about you, follow your journey and everything like that. I'll have links to everything in the show notes and everything, but like where, just we've talked about a lot of it, but like maybe if you want to plug a couple of things you're doing and the stream and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So the main place that you can find me, and you can find all my other social channels there, is entrepreneur.blog, and it's spelled just how you think it is. It's entrepreneur, like you're going to spell entrepreneur, and then just switch it with nerd. But entrepreneur.blog is my main website. You can find everything there. Everything's right there. I usually do like my main like content is like readily streamable on YouTube. If you look up entrepreneur on YouTube, I'm pretty sure you find me. And if you go to twitch.tv/entrepreneur_nerd. You can also find my Twitch channel there. But that's where I make most of my stuff. That's where all my live streams happen. And we can chat it up in the comments whenever I usually respond to every single person saying
Yep.
anything on any of the live streams. So I would love to see you there if you're interested.
Yep. And that's twice a week, right?
Yes, twice a week on Wednesdays from noon to 1:30 Eastern time. And then that's when we do the productive streams, and then the goof off streams where we play video games, play old video games, and have a bunch of fun and talk about startup ideas. Is on Saturdays from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. So, and sometimes we go longer, but yeah, those are usually the two times.
Dope. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yep. And yeah, hope to continue to watch you grow in the journey of entrepreneur, Moss Generation, and everything that comes. So thanks again.
Same on my end. I'm looking forward to you growing as well. If there's anything that I can help or you think that I've done that I
Yeah.
can help you grow with, please just hit me up anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, same here, man. Appreciate it, man.
Awesome.
But ladies and gentlemen, this has been Fueled by Progress with our guest, Max Mirho. We thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.